British Empire, MBE, for service to the profession. I think we should clap very well. Sustainable and include to planning reform in a global planning, resilient context. This is lead paper.
Thereafter, we invite the panel.
Very much, and I would like to say a big thank you to Dr. David. We worked together in first. You've already been told a little bit about me, even though I have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know whether, but just a few. So if you don't mind about me, and explore can do to make a difference to planning in Nigeria. Can I have the next slide, please? To know that and so that's all I know how to do. Next slide, please. So I'm going to was established in 1940, 27,000 professional members through education. As we heard earlier on, you cannot devolve planning and politics. Planning is political in nature, and in order to be able to influence those policies and the law being set by governance, the RTPI advocates strongly for its members and for the profession. The RTPI has various classes of membership. I'm not going to go into that right now. I know a few people are interested in that. All I'm going to say is that there is a lot of information on the website. The other point I'd like to make, which already I've stated, is the MOU between the NITP and the RTPI. And hopefully that will open more opportunities for learning by the NITP members. Next slide, please. So I would now like to go into my opening remarks and, of course, just talk about what it is. So I did mention that it's an honor to join you today at the 2025 Annual Conference. And, of course, I do so being a proud Nigerian planner. I'm also proud to say that I have been able to forge the way. It wasn't easy for those who think it was. It was my second election that I got elected. So I didn't get elected when I ran for the first time, but the second time I ran, I was elected. So yeah, I'm encouraging you all, if you ran for an election, you do not win, please don't give up, run again. So I stand boldly to represent you all as Africans and also every one of you as a planning professional. One of the things that I'm doing this year as the president of the Royal Town Planning Institute is to focus on 3 key pillars of collaboration, investment, and inclusivity. Because this is not the aim of the paper, I'm just going to touch on it briefly, but all of this is already online, and so you'll be able to see it. And so that is collaboration, ensuring that both the private and public sectors will collaborate. In the UK, we are planning, not anything else. So, but often we have what we call planner bashing, where the public sector are being bashed by the private sector. Just because they don't get their planning permission, they start to bully planners. So this year, I'm advocating that we need to collaborate more. We need to celebrate more the positive power of planning. And so, we are inviting if every day as planners. I'm going to share some insights drawn from my experience and from my lead paper on how developing countries can remodel their planning, administration, and urban governance systems to meet the demands of the 21st century. When I got this title, I thought to myself, most of these things we all know. Most of us in this room, we've walked that circuit. We're shown by the panelists to focus on how can we make this change happen. Hopefully, there might be some new truths I will be speaking about, but global context. And we all know that governance challenges are universal. I can't see this screen very well. Okay, so we know that global, okay, I've lost my place, just hold on. So we know that the global challenges of governance are universal. So from London housing crisis to Berlin's rent control, these are universal. So it doesn't matter wherever you are in the world. I chair the Global Planners Network, which comprises America, Australia, all the big nations. When we meet as presidents, we all have similar challenges. Challenges of governance is always number one. Even America, we all know what's going on right now with Trump. He doesn't want to hear anything about inclusivity, climate change. He doesn't want to hear most of those things that planners do because of the, of his own policies. And so what we're finding out is that every single one of the presidents in that presidential group all agree that we all have a problem with governance. So it's not just unique to Nigeria alone. The other thing is that we know that developing countries face added pressure, limited capacity, as well as fiscal fragility. I would just like to pause here that you've got my full paper in the deck, in the paper deck. So I'm just doing highlights and summaries because I haven't got a lot of time. So please do read the paper. So we know that the financing of most regeneration schemes is often not there. And even when it's there, it's misappropriated. And so we know that that is really, really fragile, and it's something that we need to consider. The third thing there is about the core issue. How do we align capacity building? How do we align institutional capacity, political and the social legitimacy? I've spoken a lot in the past about political will, especially when I did some project for Lagos State. Without political will, planners can't do anything. Most of the state governments who support planning, you can see within those particular areas that planning is successful. And that is because they invest a lot in that particular planning. Without data, you cannot plan properly. And so it's very, very important for us to consider, how do we use data in everyday planning? What kind of data do we hold? And how can we ensure the integrity of those data? We have to think about multi-level compacts in terms of how are we progressing. So we are not just thinking about planning in isolation, but ensuring that we are planning things in a way that it's compacted, it's compacted. The other thing I would like to talk about is the resilience reform. How do we build resilience into planning, and how can we ensure the opportunities of that resilience? So it's very, very important that we begin to consider resilience as an opportunity. How do we build that capacity within planning? And of course, we're talking about fiscal innovation and co-production with communities. A lot of time we sideline communities. We do not carry them along. We do not engage with them. And so again, in the paper, I've talked greatly about how we can co-produce. Co-production does not mean you just talk to planners or talk to local authorities or talk to residents, but it's much more about working with them collaboratively to look at how can we co-produce and ensure that that co-production lead to gains within the communities. I'm going to talk briefly now about the international frameworks that we can use in order to get some basis to plan on. So we all know most of us, if I may just get a show of hands, because I know a lot of you attend all these international conferences. How many of you have attended international conference in the last 3 years outside of Nigeria? I'm sure a lot of you have. So some of these things I'll be talking about next, you do know about. So the first one that I'll be talking about is the International Guidelines on Urban and Territorial Planning, IGUTP. This was adopted in 2015, and it promotes integration across spatial scales, coherence between government levels, and participatory planning. For developing countries such as Nigeria, it provides a diagnostic tool to address fragmentation and legitimate participatory governance, often absent in centralized systems. And so we could use the principle of IGUTP to support harmonization of mandates across Nigeria's federal, state, and local tiers, particularly in cities such as Abuja, where FCDA and area councils overlap and they undermine coherent urban planning. The other bit which I would like to touch upon is the new urban agenda. And this was adopted at Habitat 3 in 2016. And of course, it sets out a vision of cities as inclusive, resilient, and sustainable engines of development. It is relevant because it emphasizes national urban policies, fiscal empowerment of local governments, and the integration of informality and resilience into planning system. It's a non-binding framework, and so in terms of adaptation, you have to look carefully how you adopt that. And we know that the Nigerian's National Urban Development Policy, the NUDEV policy, was last updated in 2012 and is currently under review. This particular framework is an opportunity for those involved, which might be some of you in this room, to align it with the NUA principles. When we do this, we can empower all the municipalities, all the local areas within Nigeria. The third one I'd like to mention briefly is the SDG goals, which I'm sure we are all very familiar with. It was adopted in 2015. It provides a universal framework for development with SDG 11 on sustainable cities, SDG 16 on institutions, and SDG 17 partnership. All these are directly relevant for governance. I need not say more because most of you are already familiar with this and you work with this every day. The fourth framework there, which I would like to draw to your attention, is the Sendai framework, which is for disaster risk reduction, that's SFDRR for short. This was adopted in 2015, and it links reduction with governance, institutional reforms, and sustainability. And it is for rapidly urbanizing hazard-prone developing countries. It legitimizes preventive investments and calls for mainstreaming resilience into planning and budgeting. And we are all aware that in 2022, there was flooding in Nigeria. It displaced millions, and this highlights the urgency of embedding disaster risk reduction into Nigeria's capital investment frameworks. However, disaster management remains siloed in emergency agencies. It's disconnected from urban planning and budgeting system. So we need to be aware of this, that we have to consider how we do that. And of course, we've got the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, which was adopted in 2015, and it recognizes the role of cities in mitigation and adaptation, and it creates avenues for assessing international climate finance. And we all know that climate change is real. No one needs to tell us that it isn't. So we need to consider how Nigeria can begin to implement parts of that Paris Agreement. So when we look at all these 5 frameworks, 2 things emerge. First, they provide valuable reference points integration from IGUTP, strategic vision from NUA, monitoring and accountability from the SDGs, resilience from the SFDRR, and climate action and finance from the Paris Agreement. And of course, their limitations are consistent. They are non-binding, they are heavily dependent on political will, and they are constrained by weak capacity, and they are vulnerable to donor-driven or rhetorical adoption. Next slide, please. So it's important for us to then consider what are the strategic pathways that we can use. And on the screen there, you've seen the 5 key pathways which I've already posted, which is institutional integration, fiscal innovation, resilience mainstreaming, participatory governance, and capacity development. I'm going to move on to the next slide because I've been told how many more minutes I've got. So this slide talks about local government reform. This is really at the heart of the planning malaise in Nigeria. Even though we have planning at local area levels, local government does not have that responsibility in terms of what they need to do. So it's very important that local governments, I don't mean local planning areas, I mean the governments of local areas should be at the front line of planning. The states should take a more or less a leading role to set the strategic policies and direction, but allow local authorities to engage planners so they can deliver at that local level. That way, we will have more jobs for planners. We would also be able to implement planning policies very quickly. But we know that this particular area of governance is often the weakest link. And so if we're able to empower them, it means we would have clarity, autonomy, and professionalization. Next slide, please. I'm just going to talk briefly about the policy scenarios. So there are 3 reform paths which I'm recommending to this House. The first one is we should look at incremental. So we have pilots that we can look at and we can maybe amplify. We know about the Lagos State e-approvals. In the UK, we have the digital planning. The government is investing heavily in digital planning. There's an arm of the ministry. That's all they are doing. So digital planning is at the forefront of planning in the UK. So we need to start to see who else in Nigeria is doing that. I'm aware Edo State, because I did some project for them last year, already working on that. So amongst all the federal states, we need to look at examples. We need to use these areas as pilots and then spread it out across the nation. And we can also help each other and go on study visits to see what others are doing. Next slide, please. So in terms of implementation, I'm advocating that we need to move from vision to action. We need to sequence reforms. I heard earlier about the planning law. I don't know if anyone is following the British planning system. Right now, we're having another bill going through the House of Parliament, and that is the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. So whilst we've got the Town and Country Planning Act, 1992, but on top of that, we have other bills, other acts that's still being processed through the system. And so it's very important that we think about how do we sequence reforms. Reform should not be stagnant. We should continually think about how we can improve. We should also be aware that in Nigeria, there's the political realities, and that is with us. We cannot run away from the political realities. How we then navigate that is something that the Institute needs to get skilled on. In the Royal Town Planning Institute, we have media personnel, we have political personnel. We are not just engaging planners. We have people who know how to navigate the political systems, and they are the ones who open the doors for us to see ministers and others when we need to. So you need to learn how to navigate that. We need to anchor our institution, talking about NITP top rec. How can we make them to be much, much more engaged to ensure that reform happens? And of course, we need to align with global frameworks, which I've already talked about. And we need to monitor, learn, and scale up so that we can ensure that the whole of Nigeria is adequately covered. Talking about the role of professional institutes, we've talked about the NITP top rec, the Royal Town Planning Institute. They can lead reform through standards. They can lead reform through CPDs, and they can lead reform through advocacy. I cannot highlight enough the role of advocacy. To have a vibrant planning profession, advocacy is key, is number one. I know that started, has always been the norm. It may just be that we scale up, especially in Nigeria. Even in the UK, we're always finding new ways to advocate for planning. In conclusion, remodeling planning is not just technical, it's institutional as well as political. And so some of the key goals we need to consider is we need to empower institutions, we need to enable resilience, we need to embed inclusion, and we need to ensure fiscal sustainability. With foresight, collaboration, and commitments, we can build planning systems that deliver planning, that delivers sustainable futures. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you for listening. As I've said, the full paper is in the deck. I'm not quite sure what it's called, the program. So thank you very much for listening, and happy deliberations. Thank you.
You can still sit down. Oh, okay, fine, that's fine. Can we have another round of applause for our first lead presenter? Another round of applause, please. So her paper, Developing Policy Scenarios and Strategies for Remodeling, Planning, Administration, and Urban Governance in Developing Countries towards Sustainable Urban Development, was taken by Town Planner Helen Afadipe, President, Royal Town Planning Institute. And so we thank her again for this wonderful paper. As you listen to her, so many things keep resonating. From vision to mission, reforms are not stagnant, reforms are not one-off things, they are a continuous process. And also, there's the question of political navigation. Remodeling also has to do with both institutional and political navigation. So we thank her a lot. The full paper is there. As we engage with the full paper, we'll get to understand all the nuances of all the things she's talking about. That's wonderful. So we'll now move on to the panel of discussants, who we come, analyze the paper, talk about the paper, and from there we'll make more sense of what she's talking about and connect that to our own reality here. So to invite the panel of discussants, okay, fine. So, I was just going to invite the panel of discussants to come up and engage with the paper, but I'm told that we could take the second paper simultaneously so that at the end of the day we could have both panel of discussants so that we make sense of the whole thing. So that's just a little bit of the change. So in that sense, the second paper, which is restructuring urban and regional plan administration for good governance in Nigeria, it's written by Town Planner Steve Onu and Professor Kingsley Oboy. So I invite Town Planner Steve Onu. Town Planner Steve Onu is the past president of the Institute, to the high table. A round of applause for Town Planner Steve Onu. I would also like to invite Town Planner Professor Kingsley Oboy, if he's here. If it's not, so Town Planner Steve Onu will take the high table. Just for the sake, for us to save time, I'm not going to call someone to take the citation. I'll just run a quick citation of Steve Onu so that in just a minute's time it's done. We'll put our paper on the slides, then we'll engage with it. Town Planner Chief Steve Onu started his career having a diploma in Yaba College of Technology in 1977, BSc and MURP from the University of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., USA, in 1980 to 1982. He was the 20th national president of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners 2012 to 2014. Before this time, he was the Imo State Director of Town Planning, General Manager of Imo State Environmental Transformation Commission, and retired from State Civil Service as a permanent secretary in 2011. Yeah. Since then, he has remained active in the affairs of the Institute, having served earlier as the first Assistant Secretary and Financial Secretary. He is currently a member of the Fellowship Selection Committee, Chairman, also a member of the Steering Committee of Making Cities Resilient, and organ of the UNSDR and UNDRR, having participated in the UNDRR workshops and meetings in Barcelona, Spain, Geneva, Switzerland, and Hong Kong. To round it up, he is well-traveled and loved reading and music. So that's a short citation of Town Planner Steve Onu. I will hand over the mic to him. He's just got 20 minutes to talk to us. Thereafter, I'll call the panel of discussants. So within 1 minute, I'll still put the paper, the slide. You can put the paper where I put the slides there. Thank you.
Our trustees, distinguished fellows, professional colleagues, friends of the Institute, please permit me to make this presentation. The title of my paper is Restructuring Urban and Regional Planning Administration for Good Governance. Researches and the experience in the practice of urban and regional planning has indicated that one major challenge we face as planners in Nigeria is the structure of fiscal planning administration, especially at the local government level, where planning is not practiced. These are found out to be the root cause of ineffectiveness of planning. There is high rate of urbanization in Africa, which has grown tremendously over the years, and the region is currently battling with the challenge of managing urban growth. Most of the growth are in our towns and cities, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, that have low financial, human, and ecological technical resources to provide the needed services. It is estimated that urban population in Africa will increase by 950 million between 2020 to 2050. And in Nigeria, it is estimated that our urban population will increase to about 190 million by 2050. This rate of urban growth has implication in governance. Urban planning and management of measures are needed to control the increasing population as well as activities in urban areas. And the major instrument for urban governance is enactment of a suitable planning law that sets the framework for good city management. Whether you believe it or not, our cities are not being managed because the framework for city management is not there. In Nigeria, Urban and Regional Planning Act 138 of 2004 was enacted to address these inadequacies. Unfortunately, that law, before it was to be implemented, was shut down by the Supreme Court judgment that has continued to create discussions. We heard about it yesterday, and we'll continue to hear about it until we come to terms with the realities of the time. The situation in many states of the Federation is very worrisome, and there is need to address that. This paper explores the legal and administrative structures of planning, fiscal planning in Nigeria, examines the challenges of urban and regional planning, with special case study of planning authorities in Imo State. And I will suggest strategies that we could apply to address planning administration. Now let's look at urban governance, the global perspective. Good governance is an initiative of the World Bank and the UN Habitat to achieve a viable development in countries. It refers to how governments and other stakeholders, such as community actors, private sector, civil society organizations, decide on how to plan, finance, and manage urban areas. Today, urban governance is very vital for city development because it helps to define the functions, directs planning, and ensures availability of infrastructure and access to services, as well as distribution of resources among groups. It involves good delivery, service delivery, participatory decision-making, collaboration, partnership, innovation, and responsiveness. Urban Governance Index. Next slide, please. Next. The UN Habitat Global Campaign on Urban Governance developed Urban Governance Index. And the index is targeted at achieving sustainable development goals and the Habitat Agenda. And there are 4 basic principles that index emphasized. The first is equity, effectiveness, participation, and accountability. They form the framework for good urban governance. Where any of these indicators are not in existence, then urban governance is not in existence. Now, next slide. Good urban governance and urban and regional planning. First, urban and regional planning relies on good governance to ensure that, 1, inclusive decision-making on plans, infrastructure, and service provisions. It ensures collaboration among urban stakeholders. It ensures transparency and public trust in planning, developing and implementing long-term visions. On the other hand, urban planning contributes to good urban governance by ensuring citizen participation in the planning process, fostering planned infrastructure and services to attract investors, enhancing delivery of services such as water, electricity, and of course, urban and regional planning is a technical and political process. It's concerned with the control and use of land and the design of urban environment. Next slide. Well, these are indicators which were linked to city resilience, particularly planning, among other components. There are 19 indicators developed by UN Habitat. Out of these, 16 are related to urban and regional planning. Now, urban and regional planning administration in Nigeria. The Town and Country Planning Ordinance Cap 155, please take note, of 1948, law of Nigeria, was adopted from Town and Country Planning Law of 1946 of Britain. This Cap 155 was adopted by the three regions then, the Western region as Cap 124 in 1959, Eastern region as Cap 126 in 1963, and Northern region as Cap 130 in 1959. These regional laws were designed to establish planning authorities and the preparation of planning schemes for the areas designated as planning areas. The authority so appointed shall be a body corporate. In 1976, we had local government reform, which transferred some of the functions of the planning authorities to the local government, thereby weakening the planning authorities. Then we had, in 1978, the Land Use Act, which was enacted, one, to control speculation, two, to make land available to individuals, institutions, corporate bodies, and government through the state and local governments. But this decree, again, entrusted land in the states under the governor of the states, and says the governor shall control land in urban areas across the state, while the local government controls land in the rural areas. This particular section made it difficult for local government chairmen whose territory fall within urban areas to take control and manage land within their jurisdiction, especially the local government headquarters as declared. And in some states where the governor had declared the entire local government, the entire state as urban, you find that the local government chairmen do not have any control in the management of land in those areas, other than carrying out mundane functions like, registration of radio license, registration of bicycle license, maintenance of cemeteries, and those are not issues that generate development. Then Town Planners Registration Council was established through Decree 3 of 1988 to regulate the practice of planning in this country. This it should do by drawing the attention of government at every event on the need to set up an institutional framework that will promote planning. Apart from accrediting universities, registering our members, it is important that they address this section. Now, planning institutional framework, Imo State experience. Like I said, Imo State was part of Eastern region and is being managed, East Africa is being managed by implementation of the 1963 Town and Country Planning Law. That law says that commissioner, then minister, in charge of town planning matters, under section 4.1, appoints a planning authority, an area he deemed fit. Go to that law, that's what it says. It didn't say in any local government. Now, as the executive authority for initiation and planning in the area, the membership of the authority varied. Initially, it was the chairman, the governor, the commissioner who appoints the members and appoints any of the members as the chairman. Later, it was amended. The Supervisory Council of Local Government was appointed a chairman, and then at another time, it was changed to the chairman of local government being the chairman. But membership of the authority are mostly drawn from the state ministry with the director of town planning, surveyor general, or their representative, and the director of lands. Then they go down to local government. You have the head of works, head of area engineer, and health. These are, and then 2 private citizens appointed as the members of the authority. Now, that same law says under section 4.4 that the commissioner could appoint a local government as the authority. That has never happened, but it's contained in that law. Now, at the creation of Imo State, the law continued to operate. Today, we have 26 planning authorities and Owerri Capital Development as the planning authority in control of the capital territory. One of the list of the law is that the planning authority recruits its own staff and controls its own finances. As of today, none of those planning authorities are in a position to employ anybody, simply because of the instability in the local government system. It's either you are removed today as chairman of local government, or appointed as a sole administrator, or elected or appointed. There has not been consistency in the administration of planning at the local government level. Now, next slide, please. As I said, that 26 planning authorities plus OCDA. Now, if you look at the statistics there, staff strength, the staff strength, either or not planning authority, staff strength 1. Also planning authority, staff strength 5. Out of these 26 planning authorities, only 13 out of 26 have registered town planners. And those 13, yes, only 13 out of 26. The rest are populated with ATOs, technical assistants, clerical officers. And the question is, how can a planning authority under this structure provide good governance? A planning authority that does not have the required materials to perform its functions. Tell me what a technical assistant or a technical officer who has no planning training, what he will go to do with the chairman of the local government, what advice will he give him? So, following this development, it becomes necessary for us to look at some models of planning administration that could be adopted. First, what we're experiencing is the Autonomous Independent Planning Authority, which we inherited from our colonial masters. Being autonomous and independent, the planning authorities were meant to be apolitical. But can they be apolitical? No, because the services provided by the whether planning authority or local government are products of political decisions. So what that means is that the independent planning authority's concept, as it is today as a model, is not favorably disposed to us. The next one is where in the case where you have what city manager form of government, where the council is the agency responsible for planning matters. In that case, the council appoints a city manager who oftentimes is a planner, and he is in charge of the day-to-day running of administration of planning. Unfortunately, this model again cannot be operated here because of the nature of our political setting. Then the next is the line staff departmental structure. Under this structure, planning is a department in the local government, not an independent authority. It's a department in the local government. Then the director of the planning in the local government works directly with the local government chairman and advises him on planning matters. This structure is in existence at the federal level where you have federal departments in the federal ministry, and it is applicable at the states. So what stops us from taking it down to the local government level? What it does is this model allows for transparency, accountability, and carrying out planning activities. Also, recruitment of staff by either the Local Government Service Commission or by local government itself, not by an agency that is neither supported financially by state government or by local government. Most of the planning authorities we have today in Imo State are not subvented by either the state government or the federal government. So they survive through their development control measure, whatever money they get, they pay themselves. That in itself shows lack of what? Transparency and accountability. Now, effectiveness of planning, next slide, at the city or local government level is highly influenced by the administrative structure at the local government, the size and planning needs of the local government, the place of planning within the administrative structure of the local government, and the availability of professional staff. Now, typically in Nigeria, planning administration is ineffective at the local government level because it follows the local government system where the government is constrained constitutionally because Schedule 4 of Nigerian Constitution listed what local governments can do. And that constraint alone limits what the planning authority itself can do. Now, the Land Use Act, which places the control of management of land in urban areas on the state, thus, the local government chief executive in cities have limited powers to exercise as regards control, management of urban land within areas of its jurisdiction. Again, fragmentation of our cities into local governments makes it difficult for any form of coordination in planning in those cities. Now, this slide, yes. This slide shows the relationship between the local government and planning authority. If you look down, you'll find out that at the lower level, there's administration, there's health, there's education, there's works, that's agriculture. Those are departments in local government. Then planning authority on itself is hanging out there. There's no institutional relationship between the planning authority and the other levels of agencies in the local government. Yes, I've seen it. Now, I'm thinking, next slide, that the most robust arrangement or institutional arrangement to strengthen planning authorities at the local government level is the creation of town planning stroke community development department in the local government, so that both personnel and administration, health, education, works, agriculture, and town planning and community development department will all be departments supervised by the chairman of the local government, funded by the chairman of the local government. And in that case, the director of town planning and community development will be in a position to advise the chairman, both in town planning and in community development matters, because those communities are part of the local government. And as at today, most communities in our local government areas are not factored into planning in that area. Recommendations. To achieve this, I would suggest the amendment of the Constitution to incorporate urban and regional planning in the concurrent list, so that federal government role will be policy formulation on fiscal planning, establishment of planning standards, preparation of national development plan, regional plan, and international protocol, but not development control, because development control is a residual matter, it's a local level matter. Federal government cannot come to a rural area asking their agency, their district officers, to be processing development permits in the states. It's not proper. Now we suggest that we revise the urban and regional planning law to remove the ambiguity linking the commission board and urban regional planning departments at the federal and state levels. The amendment should incorporate the establishment of the proposed town planning and community development department at the local government and local level as a viable option for the autonomous independent planning authority. The state houses of assembly should be approached to create this town planning and community development department at the local government level as an alternative to this independent planning authority that is not functioning. Adopting the administrative framework that will address metropolitan-wide planning issues in large cities as against the fragmented, uncoordinated local government system. This requires the creation of Council of Governments as Metropolitan Planning Board, where the chief executive of the affected local government within the metropolis could constitute membership of the board to articulate, formulate, and execute jointly policies and programs that affect area-wide infrastructure development. Strengthening local administration to handle planning as a viable tool could be a source of revenue generation for the local government, and also an efficient planning of human settlements. Next, final, moral saying. If we do not change, you will be disqualified from competition. If you do not learn new things and your thoughts and mentality stay old, you will end up with time. Thank you very much.
Can we have, sir, can you sit at the extreme, that side? Yeah, the last seat there. It's for a reason. So, we thank Town Planner Steve Onu, past president of the Institute, for his paper, Restructuring Urban and Regional Planning for Good Governance in Nigeria. It's been a great paper that had a context, which is the IMO context, with 26 planning authorities. That would have been a robust framework, but somewhere along the line, lots of problems, policy drift, weak institutions and all that. He offered some sort of models. So as the discussants, we invite them, they'll be able to interrogate some of these models he's talking about. So thank him again for that wonderful paper. A round of applause for him. So we've got a little bit of the change of framework. Initially, we wanted to take the papers independently, but we have sort of meshed the papers together. So we will now have just one chairman to come moderate this program. And that chairman is Town Planner Lekwa Ezuta, fellow of the Institute, past president of the Institute. Can we give him a round of applause as he comes to the stage? So you sit in the middle, sir. Yeah, so that's the chairman of this technical session, Town Planner Lekwa Ezuta, fellow of the Institute, past president of the Institute. So for the first paper, the discussants, the panel of discussants, we invite So for the first paper, I invite Town Planner Dr. Lucas Achi, fellow of the Institute, past president. Is he here, sir? Town Planner Dr. Lucas Achi. Okay. So next is Town Planner Lamin Ayuba. Town Planner Lamin Ayuba. Town Planner Lamin Ayuba is around, so round of applause for him as he moves to the stage.
So don't mistake me for Ayuba.
Town Planner Ayuba? Yeah, she? Yeah. No, it's not around.
Go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. Town Planner Ayuba, former chapter chairman, FCT. Next is Town Planner Adebisi Adedire, past president of Aptocon. Yeah. I'm told that Chief Felix Obuad is not around. Ben Okoye is not around. And in place of Ben Okoye, we should have Town Planner Rekia Farche. Is she around? She's not around. Okay, so for the first discussants, we have Lami Ayuba, we have BC Adedire, see around, past president of Aptocon. Okay. As they come, we'll come over, we'll replace the other ones. Okay, for the second paper, the discussants, we have Town Planner Nathaniel Atebeje, fellow of the Institute, the immediate past president. Town Planner Nathaniel Atebeje, fellow of the Institute, past president of the Institute, as one of the panel of discussants. We have Town Planner Dr. David Olakunde, retired director, Federal Minister of Housing and Urban Development. Town Planner Dr. David Olakunde. We also have Town Planner Dr. Lawson Ananaba, retired director of Town Planning Abia State, still around. Town Planner Dr. Lawson Ananabe, retired director of Town Planning Abia State.
Are we collapsing? I thought after this group, this other group.
Yes, I'll finish with this. Okay, so just a little bit of structuring. We have Town Planner Risikat Bello for, sort of discussants. Round of applause for Town Planner Risikat Bello. She'll sit here, she'll sit here. So ladies and gentlemen, we have Ezuta, who is going to moderate this session of the program. So I'll hand over the mic to him to do the program. But we have 15 minutes for the first paper, another 15 minutes for the second paper. So we'll have 30 minutes for the whole round of discussions. After that, we'll have 5 minutes.
Past presidents, fellows, professional colleagues. There's been a slight amendment to what you have in your program. These papers were supposed to be discussed separately, but now we are going to discuss them jointly. I will act as chairman of this session, while past president of ATOPCON will act as the moderator. He will give each of the discussants 3 minutes to wrap up what they know, what they think about the two papers. Then we'll give time for members to ask questions. Please, if somebody interested, and that will lead to a lot of people itching to ask questions, so I'll crave our indulgence to be prepared so that you don't run around the issue. You go straight to the point. Time will be limited for every person who has something to say. Definitely will not take all the questions because we don't have all the time. The first lead speaker, for me, did set the tone or set the agenda for talking about reform, talked about several issues, and the second lead paper now tried to get down to talking about reform using a state here in Nigeria as a case study. For me, the first paper said a lot of things which we all know, but if you ask me, I'll say the take home is that the challenges are same everywhere. But then ours is a little bit peculiar with respect to our governance structure. And he advised that there's need for reform. Yes, she agrees, and everybody agrees there is need for reform. But it is now, how do we go about that reform? And the advice is that can't talk about wholesale reform, a once and for all activity. It has to be taken in sequence. We have to prioritize our reform and then take it sequentially. 2, we need to have a lobby group. Well, this issue keeps reoccurring. I don't know how we go about it. It seems it is imperative that we have a lobby group from amongst ourselves. Some people say we go into politics. Somebody says there must be a lobby group. He also has mentioned it. He said that in talking about reforms, it will be sustainable development goals, the new urban agenda, and so on. So taking it from there, I know we'll now go down to our states or to our local listing to talk about the reforms. Having set the tone, I will now hand over to the moderator to continue from there. But, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it has been said, we don't have that because by the time we spend 3 minutes, any policy scenario towards sustainable urban development. As it has been written here, policy scenario and regional planning law since 1992, 33 years ago, and all we believe that it's only very. Let me start from our past president. Your own view with.
Do not work for the implementation of their plans. And so the plans themselves are orphaned at birth and implemented. It's called upon. The instruction I have. So you see how plans fail in Nigeria. And I think the private sector has a very serious role to play in terms of planning administration. It is not only, being involved in consultancies, and they should be, adequately be prepared to do their jobs by town planners themselves. So let us, many times we've been talking about issues of names. It is not even the name that is our problem, the practice. So I want to advocate that the private sector should be very well involved in planning administration through consultancy, through advocacy, and so many other things that we can, through PPP, we can just implement.
Thank you, my past president. Let me invite urban governance in developing countries to work.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start by referring to one of the state charting strategic pathway for plan implementation. He mentioned 5 link. She talked about institutional integration building. So this made me refer to my state, Lagos State. Definitely, Lagos State is one of the states that has implemented the urban regional planning law as it is. We have started a lot of strategic planning. Among this strategic planning, we have our ministry in place. We have 4 agencies. Recently, the ministry was divided into 2 to enhance the performance of the ministry. That is Ministry of Urban and Regional Planning. Now we have the Office of Physical Planning. We also have the Office of Urban under the Ministry of Office of Urban Development under the Ministry of Physical Planning presently. While we have LASPA, that is Lagos State Planning Permit Authority, we have Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency, we have Lagos State Building Control Agency, we also have Lagos State Informal Sector Management Authority, that is LASISMA. This agency is new and is going to be rebirthed presently. Although the agency is at work, but there will be a rebirth for this agency. The agency is charged with the responsibility of mapping all the incidental open spaces, as in the open spaces in Lagos State, and also after mapping, we are to designate use for these spaces. However, going further, under this, our reform and strategies, we have LEGAF and technology innovation, which coordinated the preparation of this website and is running around now. Part of our innovative idea is also urban regeneration. We have a lot of urban renewal programs that we have done in Lagos State. which caters for this, which is part of the recommendation from the, which is part of the recommendation of which is part of the recommendation of urban and regional planning law. Also, we have, yes.
Thank you,
we have
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You still have that time later. Let me invite Tamplana Dr. Olakunde. We've been clamoring for restructuring of urban and regional planning administration for good governance in Nigeria. To me, I believe we are not short of having planning laws in the country, but the real implementation. And I could remember vividly when we were in the school, they taught us that planning is supposed to be from before, is that the government, and you now see people carrying placard. I believe it is because we've not adequately involved the public setting at the grassroots. What is your own take?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chair, deliberations. Commission supposed to be established. It was not established. Boards supposed to be there. The boards were not established. Local planning authorities were not put in place. And where you have them, not well staffed, like we had in the last papers. So we have to look at this and push forward if we are going to really get a restructuring. The other one is the legal or regulatory or legislations. What are the legislations that will help planning administration in Nigeria? The constitution is there, and we talked of maybe having it in the concurrently, so that at least the federal can take up some rules like policy planning standard formulation or technical standards formulation, and also coordination of international protocols, which are quite essential. And also we look at the issue of the issue of procedures of how plannings are being carried out. We know we have this challenge of manpower in our planning offices, data, lack of data to planning are not there. Smart planning tools are not even available to do this. So if we are talking of restructuring of planning administration, I think we think to move further in these directions. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olakunde. Tamplana Anaba Lawson. Okay. Thank you. Please, what is your take as regards planning administration at local level? Because even every state has planning administration. We carry on activities on daily basis. But yet, at times when you have town planner at the helm of affairs, you still face with challenges. Because we used to blame people, politicians, administrators, and all the rest. But by the time we have town planners at the helm of affairs, we still face a lot of challenges when it comes to planning issues. What do you think we can do